I am Jeremy McPeak with Envato Tuts Plus, and I have a native iOS application, and really I have a native Android application as well. It's just that I only have an iPhone, so that's what we are going to be looking at. And the really cool thing is that I didn't write a single line of code to create this app. Instead, I used AppMySite to transform my WordPress website into a native iOS and Android application. These applications can be downloaded through the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And the reason why this works is because most WordPress websites have a RESTful API, and my app on my phone connects to that API to display the content. Here we can see the only blog post that my website has, but it is being natively rendered inside of the app. However, there's also a web view. So if you want to display your content as it would appear in the browser, that is an option as well. Now, my site also has the WooCommerce plugin. So I have various products that I don't really want to sell. But if this was a real shop, users would be able to add items to their cart and they would be able to pay for them. I want to keep these guitars, so that's not an option for my app. Now, it only took me about 10 minutes to build this application. I was able to design just about everything from the icon to the look and feel. I was even able to organize the home screen however I wanted it to appear. And a lot of these options have their own options, like for example, the product categories. I wanted my categories to appear close to the top on the home screen, and I was able to control how they look. And of course, by tapping on these categories, I will go to see the products for those categories. The icons at the bottom of the screen are of course customizable, and there are several options for the menu. I've chosen to use an auto-generated menu, which fits into the look and feel of my application. However, there are other options, such as using menus from your WordPress website. So let's take a look at the process that I went through to create this app. To begin, let's look at where we start, and that is just a WordPress website. Now, this particular website has the WooCommerce plugin, but yours does not have to in order to use AppMySite. You can use AppMySite for any WordPress website. So here we have the homepage. This is really the blog, and I only have one blog entry to say that this is a fake shop because this has my guitars. I don't want to sell them. There's a sample page, and then there is, of course, the shop that lists some of the guitars. Some of those are specified as for sale, and there's a few categories set up and all of that stuff. So let's jump into the WordPress dashboard, because there's one thing that we need to talk about, because as far as the documentation is concerned, you don't learn about this issue until it becomes an issue, and that is the permalink settings. So if we go to our permalink settings, we want to change it to post name. Otherwise, AppMySite's service will not be able to communicate with ours. And it doesn't tell you that up front. It's only when the communication fails that you learn that this is a setting that you need to change. So knowing right off the bat that this is something to do, that saves a little bit of time. And since we are here, let's go to our plugins, because there is a plugin that we need to install. And even though we haven't set up the AppMySite service yet, it's okay to go ahead and install this. It's free. There's no charge involved. So we are just going to search for AppMySite. There should be only one entry, and we will just go ahead and install that. And of course, after it is installed, we want to activate that. So with that done, we can go to the AppMySite website, and we are going to create a new app. You need to specify the URL. Now, the dropdown seems to imply that it supports HTTPS and HTTP. It only supports HTTPS. If you try to use HTTP, you will get an error. So you should have HTTPS to begin with. But just in case if you don't, you cannot use AppMySite. The only CMS platform available at the time of this recording is WordPress, but I know that there's a big update coming that lets you create an app from any website. Now, my website has the WooCommerce plugin, so I'm going to check that. And let's give this a name of Jeremy's Guitars. And then it's going to take us through the process of creating, or not creating, but designing certain things like the icon, the launch screen, and a few other things. So I'm going to change the default background color to a lighter blue. If you have an icon that you want to upload, that is, of course, an option. They give you a preview of what it is going to look like on iOS as well as Android, so that you can preview whatever it is that we are designing in both of those environments. There's a few other options, such as the icon text, font size, and the color, and we'll just move on. All of these are very easy to understand and very easy to use. So when it comes to setting up, at least as far as what your application is going to look like, it doesn't take just a few minutes before you have something that is readily available to publish to the App Store. Now, they do give you the option of using a background image, and in fact, they have several that you can choose from. I am going to upload one that I have. It allows you to crop that image however you want. I want to have this weathered side of the guitar visible. And of course, it's going to differ based upon the device, because different devices have different sizes, and even different devices will display things differently. And then we will just proceed on designing our application. So once again, there's several options that we can choose from. We'll just move on to the login and sign up, because remember that this is a WordPress application. People can sign in, especially if there is a shop. They can sign in with their account and make purchases. Some of the same options that are available here, I'm just going to quickly go through and change the color to match the blue that I chose. Now, the settings for the login screen don't look like that they are optional, but they are. It's just not here. So after you go through the design process, you will want to go to the user's settings, because this is where you can enable and disable login. You can allow guests to browse your app. You can also prompt the user to sign in when the app launches. And if you want to enable Google and Apple login and registration, then those options are here as well. Let's move on to the color scheme, which once again has the same settings that we have been seeing as far as the color, the font, and then the final designer is for the home screen, because we get to organize how things are going to display within our app. So at the top, you can see that there's the home header. If we turn that off, that goes away. I like the home header. I don't like this ginormous main banner, so I'm going to turn that off. And then it shows the product categories, the sale products, recently viewed products, and so on. I want to reorganize this so that the sale products are going to be at the top. Then we can have the product categories, and then we can have everything else. And of course, you can turn these off if you want. And some of these have their own settings. Like for example, let's take a look at the product categories. They give you the option of showing categories with an image, which I don't have with my site. So it makes more sense to use categories with color. And then I get to specify the shapes, the color, and all of that stuff, how many columns that are going to be there. And with those changes, we'll just move on. And then it's going to prompt us to install the plugin, which we have already done. So if you haven't, then this would be the place to go to your website, install the AppMySite plugin so that you can then connect their service to your website. And then we get to this grant access and verify ownership screen. This is where we can set up our application so that it has read and write access to our website. That is probably something that we want to do. However, since I have a WooCommerce plugin, there is the option to essentially do the same thing, but this is for the WooCommerce REST API. Now, these are mutually exclusive. If you have the WooCommerce plugin, you have to choose either WordPress or WooCommerce. Even if you have WooCommerce, it is recommended that you use the WordPress application password. So that is what we are going to do. Now, as far as the administrator username, of course, you can use any administrator, but you don't want to supply that administrator's password. That would be horrible. So instead, what we want to do is create an app password. We will go to the profile for whatever user that we want to use for the admin user, which for me, I only have one. And we are going to create a new app password. The name here really doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you want, but it does make sense to make it descriptive as to what it is for, so that as you are looking at your app passwords, you know what password is for what application, and so you can revoke the correct application whenever it comes time to do that. But we want to copy this password, and we want to do this now because once this screen is gone, we cannot get this password back. And we want to paste it into the application password and then verify. Now, if everything goes okay, then we are going to go to this preview screen. However, if for whatever reason there is an issue, then you will want to go to this troubleshooting screen. And you would want to troubleshoot because it goes through several different tests. One of those is the permalink setting, and whatever fails, you will get an idea of what you need to address. So let's go to the preview because that is the next screen. And this gives you an emulated preview of your app running in iOS. You can choose between the iPhone 11 and iPhone 8. It also lets you preview this on an Android device, the Pixel 4 and the Nexus 5. Now, of course, this isn't as good as using the app right on an actual device, but this at least gives you a little preview. And here we can see that at the top is the sale products. That is how we designed that. There's the product categories and everything else. Now, there are other settings that you can choose from. Let's go to settings and let's go to menu because notice that I don't really have an app menu here. I have these nice icons at the bottom for the home, category, search, cart, and profile, but I want a menu. So under settings, this is going to give you much more configuration options, and we can auto-populate my app menu, which is the recommended option because it ties in very nicely with the operating system that the app is running on. So I want to include post pages and product categories. We'll save that. There's a lot of other options, such as the bottom bar, so that if you didn't want to provide search for whatever reason, you could turn that off. I think having easy access to search would be good. And if you wanted to display posts differently, then this is an option here. There's this web view, which essentially shows a blog post or a web page as it would inside of the browser. You can turn this off so that it looks more native within the application itself. I'm going to choose that option and save it, and then we can go back to the preview. Now, this is a preview plan. You can design and create your application however you want using the preview plan. However, if you want to roll this out into the App Store, well, then you need a paid subscription. You can test your app on a real device. On iOS, that means that you have to install the Test Flight application so that then you can run your AppMySite app. But if you want other people to use it, you need to upgrade your subscription, which there are several options. I'm going to upgrade mine to the premium monthly plan, which unlocks a lot of other features, such as analytics, so that you can get a lot of information about how your app is being used. And that is very important, especially if you have a shop and you need to drive users to your shop. This gives you the ability to publish your app in the respective app store. Now, if it's for iOS, you of course need to have an Apple developer account, provide that information, and then it will submit your app for you. If you have multiple applications, you can use the merge app feature to merge multiple apps into one, which is a very nice feature. And then there's also the ability to opt into monetization or showing ads using Google AdMob. The UI for designing this is right in line with everything else that we have seen. AppMySite is a fantastic service. It can take your WordPress website and turn it into a native application that your users can download from the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. It's extremely easy to use and it's free to get started. So try AppMySite today.